right, before we start onto something, before we start to discuss on something, if you have any doubts, please feel free to ask your doubts. There is no point starting the session if you have doubts. If you have any doubts, yeah, the recorded video is in the YouTube channel. So you can visit to Innomatics YouTube channel and there you're gonna find out everything. Yeah, this workshop is for 5 days. Yes. Explain span. That would be done. Don't worry. I'll explain you everything. Okay, nothing will be left off. Don't worry. Okay, when I'll style off with styling, because the actual use of span is in styling, so I'll explain spans today when I'll start off with CSS. But since I'm going to start using the console from scratch, nothing hard and fast. I'll explain it to you. Video tags would be done today. Video, YouTube, I'll explain you everything. Okay, I'll explain it to you. Cool. So any other doubts apart from the things that we have, how to insert video? We'll explain it. Apart from the things that you are asking to cover out, like spans and videos, anything related to the topics that we have covered up? No, not for backend developers. This is only going to be front-end part. That also. I'll explain you what I'm thinking of for today. I'll start with tables. I'll start with tables, videos, maps, and few other things, which is like not so much of use, but you can. I'll explain it to you that. And then I'll move on to CSS and start to discuss on CSS. Okay, previous recordings, if you are interested. So I'll highly will recommend you go to YouTube. Okay. And you can go to Innomatics YouTube channel, Innomatics Research Labs. Okay. And here you're going to find out all the videos getting uploaded. So as you'll see, day 2, and here's the video. Okay. So I'll share you out with the link real quick. Wait a second. So do I have any option to share? Upload day 1 video in 180p. Whatever we get from Zoom, we download it, upload it. It's 1080. I'm not pretty sure what it is. Whatever we get from Zoom, we upload it down here. Okay. Marquee is pretty much deprecated now, Harshita. We don't use it. Rather, we use CSS instead of that. Backend workshop, maybe in the future, not sure. Backend data you can only see when you have a real backend, else you can't. If you're using any your frameworks like Angular and React, there you can do it, not using HTML. So if you're working on any what do you call it as any front-end frameworks, so you have form components out there. For example, if you talk about Angular, in Angular, what do you have? You have something which is called as forms module. So using those forms module, if you're creating your forms, you can go ahead and see whatever data which is getting passed off from your forms. Not using HTML, but using any front-end frameworks, you definitely can do that. Something like that could be done. Okay, Paul? So that way, not using HTML. Everything is done by, okay, I'll explain it to you. Do you want to have if you have time and if you want to know that why to learn framework, I can explain it to you if you're interested. Only if you're interested. Not only Python, but you'll have to look into Flask and Django. So after, when you're done with Python, go into Flask and Django. That is gonna make more sense. Okay, so I'll explain it to you once, that what is the actual utility of using any frameworks. Then we'll go ahead and start to discuss on the topics which are left off. Okay, sure. Let's quickly have a discussion. So a lot of people have a lot of confusion related to that when you talk about any front-end frameworks, right? Now, those front-end frameworks could be any framework. And that framework could be Angular framework, that framework could be a React framework or anything. Now, let's go back to, I'm not pretty sure if you're millennials enough to actually understand the example, but have you ever been into that those days wherein you used to appear for your board exams. And in those board exams, what used to happen that you used to go to cyber cafe in order to see your results. Have you been there at that time? I'm not pretty sure because you guys, I'm not sure if you're millennials enough. Have you done that? Like you used to go to cyber cafe in order to check your results and something like that. Have you been in that time? If you have, you'll relate to my example. So out there, when you used to go to cyber cafe, the cafe person used to be like, "Ah, beto, the server is still not working. The server is still hanging. The server has a lot of load. Suna hai aisa? That server is crashing. Server pe bahut load hai, and all these things." I'm pretty sure you might have heard about these things. Have you heard that? I'll tell you what's the actual reason. Why do people say that their servers are loaded, their servers are not responding, and all these things? And yeah, even in bank, when you used to work on internet banking, like half a decade or a decade ago, the internet banking was a trash at that time. Yeah, it happens sometimes if you are working in an outdated technology. That definitely happens up enough. So what used to happen is that there used to be a client. No, not because of only using congestion, but there is some other parts also. If let's suppose if you are a client, okay, and you have a backend, that backend, let's say this is your backend. Now I have a very bad drawing. Don't judge me for that. But chalo, this is the backend. Now, what used to happen that when your client used to hit the server with a request, what used to happen? It used to return a HTML page instead. This is the traditional way I'm talking about. Traditionally, the response used to be in the form of a HTML page. रघुपात ऐसे नहीं करो, छोटे बच्चों क्या? चलो. So this is what used to happen. This was the traditional way of working on servers and pages and stuff like that. Okay. Now there are two differences which has come into picture when you start to build your own backends. First thing, we don't return HTML anymore. There is something which is called as JSON. I'm not pretty sure if you might have heard about this term or not, but there is something which is called as JSON now. Any APIs that you create, any backend that you create is based on JSON. JSON basically shorts for JavaScript object notation. Okay, yeah. So it looks something like the API that I showed you, the GitHub API that I showed you, api.github.com/users. I'm not pretty sure if I showed it to you, but this is how the JSON looks like. Okay, this is a JSON. The JSON is it's and now a lot of people would be thinking, hey, this is just text. Like, what is so important about this data? So if you actually grab this URL, copy this, and paste it down here and see, you'll see it's actually a picture. It's not just a data, like it's not just a string data or just a like text data or anything. This is actual data which is getting passed from a server to a client. Rather than sharing HTML pages, we now share JSON data so that these servers don't load up too much. Now think about it, a whole file which will be few KBs, sharing that file instead of data, that would be like hardly like what? A whole file will be of 4 KB or 3 KB. Getting the point, people? Now are you getting the point? Getting it? This is one use of using any front-end framework. One use. Okay. Second use, I'll tell you, the handling or getting your your servers used to be very heavy. It used to crash and all these things. The reason was, now listen to the reason. The reason was with every request, it used to share every HTML page. Now what happens now, because you know that the JSON would be shared, once the page is loaded for the very first time in any framework, all the data is captured in the browser. Get the point. First, understand the point. When you get the JSON, you hold that whole JSON in your browser cache. Okay. Have you ever heard that you even don't have internet, but still your Google loads? Have you been there? Kabhi dekha aisa hote hue? That still your internet is not connected, but still the Google page will open because you navigate to Google so often and so frequently that it's still in the browser cache. It knows what to render. The reason is every data, every asset, everything is there in the browser cache. So anytime you try to access it, it does get accessed, right? So what happens, whatever data that you have gets rendered in your browser cache. Once you have, wait a second guys. Okay, so when you get this JSON data, this gets into the browser cache. Now what happens is that for every request you used to make, there used to be a reload of the page. Now what happens is there is no reload. Everything happens, everything in a single page application. Did I tell you that there is something which is called as SPAs? Remember on the very first day? I told you these frameworks create single page application. Single page application means that there is only going to be one file which is known as index.html. Once you have this index.html, whatever data there is in your browser cache will keep on getting rendered down here. Because you have data, you can present the HTML pretty much however that you want. This index.html is kind of like a blank slate for your browser to render. Getting the point? Now it's kind of like too much cluttered out to understand, but when you actually see it in practice, in practical orientation, then you actually get a very clear understanding. Can we somehow get JSON data for what we have created yesterday in the HTML page? No. See, Aryan, try and understand. Whenever you talk about data, whenever you talk about logic, whenever you talk about validations, when you talk about anything which is working model, which is a working model, in that case, you'll have to use JavaScript. Do you remember at the very first day, I told you about something called as Ajax? Remember Ajax? I told you about Ajax and APIs. This is what JavaScript provides you, XML HTTP request, in order to integrate third-party APIs into your application, right? That is all a part of your JavaScript. JavaScript does it for you. HTML, I told you, HTML is a bare minimum backbone and structure that you create, nothing more than that. So yeah, HTML for structure, CSS for styling, and JavaScript for all the functionality part, the logical part or the data related part, that is done in JavaScript. That is why JavaScript is such a big hit in the industry. All these frameworks that you talk about, React, Angular, Vue, these are all based on JavaScript, right? Keeping in mind they have created up these frameworks. Getting the point, people? Getting the point? Yeah, there are a lot of things. I'm not pretty sure if you might have heard about these things or not. There are a lot of ways you can use Ajax, you can use Axios, you can use Fetch, you can use a lot of different technologies or a lot of different methods in order to integrate APIs into your app when you're using React or maybe Angular or anything like that. So yeah, you can do that. If you want, at the end of the session, I can even show you a practical example of all these things. I have few projects created. So just in case if you'd be interested to see, I'll show it to you. Okay. So yeah, that could be done. All right, but that's it and done. Extra part, like this was our extra information. Let's jump on to our project, shall we? XHTML not used anymore, deprecated, Rajendra. Okay. So now I have just basically changed the whole folder architecture. Now I have a folder called as HTML. Okay. Good morning, Puneet. So I have a folder called as HTML, and inside that I have, the files called as home.html and second.html. Okay. Now, what did we do yesterday? We started off with links and we talked about absolute links, relative links, root relative links. So absolute link is a link which just gives you the exact path of where to go onto the internet and find anything, maybe images or maybe links or anything like that. Now, you can give an absolute link to an anchor tag as well if you want to make somebody navigate to a proper resource which is already available deployed on the internet. And in that case, you can go ahead and use these absolute links. Okay, it could be Google, it could be Facebook, it could be any absolute link available on the internet. Second, we have relative links. In the relative links, if you have pages which are related to your application, you can link them to your main home component. Oh, I shouldn't call it component. I'm getting too much into React. But yeah, in your home page, you can do is that you can add another pages using relative links. Okay. Then we have root relative link. So in the root relative link, you have to keep is that if you have a page and you want to go back to your home page, then that link that takes you to your homepage will be a root relative link. So that these are the three links that we had to look on. Then we started to talk on images, and I told you two ways of rendering images into your document. One, either passing the link in the source attribute as to be absolute. Either you can get the whole image directly from the internet, or you can do is you can download it and put it into your class path, or you can put it in your folder structure. Here I have a folder called as assets, and I'm keeping all the videos and pictures and everything I'll be storing down here called as assets. So in the assets, I have another picture called as, let's say, picture one. You can name it whatever you want to. So let's say picture one dot whatever the extension is going to be, and the image is going to do it for you. Also, we had to talk about the alt. Alt is a good way of maintaining your whole app. What is the difference between link tag and anti tag? Link tag. I'll explain you link tag. Let's CSS start. I'll explain you. Which is not done. We'll talk about it. Don't rush into things. Okay. And then at the end, we started to talk of HTML lists. So in the list, I told you that there are two types of list, an ordered list and an unordered list. In the ordered list, you can mention types. It will be ordering, a numbered ordering. By default, it's numeric, but you can change it to Romans, symbols, whatever you want. Oh, not whatever, but symbols or your Roman numerals and your alphabets, capital alphabets or small alphabets, depends on you. Then you have unordered list. Most of the time you're going to use this, even when you'll be creating navigation bar and all these things. Most of the time you're going to use unordered list. Okay, so this is how we create it. ULLI or OLLI. Both is pretty much the same thing. Okay, but here you will have orderings, here you will not have orderings. Simple as that. Then we started to talk of forms. Very, very important. We started to talk of forms, and we had to look on few of the input types, which are very, very necessary while you'll be creating any forms. Okay, so let me actually serve the application real quick. That's different. That's again a minified version of the same thing that you're doing down here. Oh, wait a second. Let me actually serve the app. So let's go to HTML. Let's go to home.html and let's open this app on Google Chrome. I'll just close this. Okay. And the picture is not showing because I changed the folder architecture. So I'll have to change the absolute link. It's not in the same folder, but I'll have to go a folder back, go to assets, go to picture1.jpg, save that, reload it, and we'll come back. Great. All right. So yeah, we were talking about forms. So if you'll have a look on the form, we created this form yesterday. And in that form, we created up a small little form. We'll talk about actions in a little while, but here you can see that I'm creating a label, I'm creating an input type, and input type here is text. And I'm wrapping the whole thing inside a div because all form elements, labels, and input types, they are all in line by default. Okay. So just in case, in order to make them, just give me 1 second. Yeah, sorry for the disturbance. Never mind. Yeah, so coming back. So as I told you, all the form elements that you have, maybe a label, maybe an input, everything is going to be inline by default. In order to make it look like a block level element, you'll have to wrap it around a div. So if you have a div, and if you try to inspect this page now, you will realize that these things are wrapped around something. And you'll see that there is a margin that I'll not talk about margin, but yeah, there is a little space down at the bottom. Everyone can see this? And this is for every element that you have. These are all divs. Can you see that? These are all divs. Everyone is able to see these divs, right? Not exactly for a new line, but yeah, you can understand this way. As I told you, it's kind of like a container. It's just an imaginary container. Just an imaginary container wherein you're keeping all your elements so that everything comes to a new line. Getting the point? It's kind of like a imaginary empty container. It's kind of like a empty space wherein you can keep all your elements down here, right? So same thing I've done for first name, last name, email, password, date of birth, and gender. But here you will see that there are various input types. That is important. So input type of text is something that you can have. Input type of email is there in available in HTML5, so you can use input type as email. There is also like input type of password, that wherein you don't want your user to see that what you've written or what you've typed, then you can use that out here as an input type as for password. So now if you'll go ahead and enter any password, I just don't want to explain that. But if you try to write any password, the password won't be shown. It will be shown as dot. So yeah, that is like pretty cool by HTML. All right. So password, then you have date of birth. There is an input type as date. As you'll see, it gives you a calendar kind of like a situation wherein you can go ahead and navigate to any year, any month, any day, and you can go ahead and select. If you'll go ahead and select 18, it will be selected automatically, right? So this is like pretty cool. Then we have something which is called a select option. Select option basically gives you a way to handle data, which is like prerequisite. If you talk about gender, the gender is predefined, right? Either it could be male, female, and just to be politically correct, others, right? So out there, if you try to see this, it could be either male, female, or others. You don't have any other option apart from selecting either of the three. One would be auto-selected, but you can go ahead and change that using JavaScript. That's completely fine. Okay. And then at the end, I told you that there is another input type which is called as a text area. Now, text area, this is more important. I don't call it important, but it's kind of like a different from input type text, as you definitely can see that you can select off rows and columns. And depending upon these rows and columns, you can go ahead and create as big as you want to, right? So rows will be this and columns will be this. So please keep that in mind. Okay. And you can just give it whatever you values that you want to give it. And then at the end, we had to look on something which is called as an input type file. And using input type file, you can actually go ahead and select files from here. And this will work, right? It will just give you an option to select files. Okay. And then at the end, we have a button. Now, there is either a button you can keep it, or you can keep it as input type submit. Okay. And you can give it a value, submit, or submit form, or whatever you want to keep it. Right? And this will work automatically, just like this. It will be a kind of like a button. Now, the most important point here to understand is that when you're creating forms, very, very important, open your ears and listen to me carefully. When you have a form, every form has a default nature of taking that data, getting that data and putting it in your backend by default. Okay, there is no second option. So action attribute that you have in your form basically takes in the URL of your backend and basically makes a post request of that data. Now, I'm not going to go too much inside that what is a post request, what is a get request and all that. That's like a HTTP verbs. But yeah, it posts everything in your backend. That's all you need to know as of now. What if we have multiple options, table selected, drop down box? Should we? I highly will recommend you do that. The reason is it's most commonly used now, select options. But again, you can go ahead and yeah, I'll tell you one more resource that you can go ahead and use, the best official resource that you can use. I'm not pretty sure if you know about this resource or not, but there is something which is called as MDN. Now, don't go ahead and look into W3 schools and all these weird resources. You can look into HTML and JavaScript using MDN. So you can use, yeah, MDN reference. That's an official reference. So you can go ahead and use it. So if you'll go to just write down MDN, which basically shorts a Mozilla Developer Network. So you can just write MDN HTML and you'll get the official resource and official documentation of everything that you actually need to know for HTML. So you'll see everything out here, links, inline, block level elements, attributes, and all these things. You'll be able to find it out here, right? Input types, you'll find out a lot of input types down here. And now it's not possible to cover out everything, but you can go ahead and have a look on them. Let's say you're interested in knowing more about input type password. It will just give you what this basically does and why is it so important, how to grab data using JavaScript and all that. Okay. So you can go ahead and use that. So just in case if you're interested, if you want, I can share you out with the link. Should I share you out with the link, or you will be able to find it out? Will you be able to find it out? Never mind, I'll just share it out with you anyways. Okay, just in case you're being lazy and you don't want to go that. So here's the link. Okay, so here's a very official reference for this. Okay, so you can go ahead and have a look on it. Cool. So if you don't have any doubts, just quickly give me a yes, then we'll move ahead and start to discuss on a few other things, shall we? Start correct? Let's start to discuss of a few other parts. All right. Now, I want to go into, before I move into tables, I just want to quickly give you a little overview on, it's not important. You might use it, not sure, but you will somehow or the other way might be using it sometimes, down the lane. So yeah, that is way. So let's say I am not sure if I have any videos or something, but let's see if I have any videos. I have one. So let's say I'll copy this and I'll paste it down here in my sets folder. Okay, so let's say I have a video, a MP4 video. Now you can have whatever videos you want to, but here I'll be talking about videos and YouTube videos and all these iframes for a little while. Let it copy first, then we'll move ahead and start to discuss on videos, because a lot of people I think don't talk about videos, but these are actually important. When you're creating an official website for somebody, there would be situations when you'll be interested in creating videos and animations and all these things. So yeah, let it copy first. I don't know why it's taking so much time, but yeah, let's wait for it to complete. Till the time it's getting complete, let's do one thing. Is it done? Is it done? Oh yeah, it's done. Okay, cool. All right. Chalo. So now if we look into the app, if you'll go back and look into this, so in the assets, you will have a video. Let's go ahead and try to integrate it, shall we? So integrate karte hain. So let's put an HR tag. And down here, let's keep an H3 and let's call this videos. We're going to have a look on videos, how to integrate videos. So are you ready? Are you ready? If you're ready, we can start to talk of videos, shall we? Chalo. So just like if you want to integrate any video, you can integrate that video just like we used to integrate a image. So for image, you have a img tag. For video, you have a video tag. In that video tag, again, just like images, you will have something which is called as a source, exactly as that of like images. You have source, so you'll have to pass it a source. Let's go ahead and pass it a source. So if you'll have a look on our source, we are right now in the HTML folder. We'll have to go a folder up, and then you'll have assets. So in that assets, you'll have this MP4 action, component creation lifecycle and action. Let's say. If you save it, now this is important. Try to understand this. If you save this, reload the page, you will have the video. This is important. You will have the video. But if I expand this page, the video will not work. It will not play. Everyone can see that? I don't have controllers. I have nothing. This video is not going to work. This video is not going to play. Everyone can see this? Guys, everyone can see this? That even if I'm taking this in the video tag, passing an exact source, you'll see it's getting rendered, but it won't play. This is a problem for us. What should we do? For that, you have a HTML attribute, which is to be passed to your video tag, which is called as controls. Just controls, not autoplay, just controls. If you save this and now reload and expand the form, now you'll see that you have an option to play, to handle the volume, to maximize it, to go to picture-in-picture mode and all these things. You can do that, okay? So out here, you'll see that the video is playing perfectly fine. You can scroll, you can go to a selected thing, and everything is gonna work completely fine, right? So this is how we integrate videos. The videos make sense, that why is controls as an attribute is important. If you don't give controls, the user will not have controls to manipulate and play around with the video. Does this make sense? Does this make sense? Cool, great. Now, let's talk about clickbaits. Have you went to YouTube and you might have seen a lot of YouTubers do that? They create a poster for, or I should say, thumbnail to a video in such a way that you have a clickbait kind of like a situation. Have you been there? Yeah, thumbnail. They add a thumbnail, but that thumbnail is really, you know, like it tempts you on a way. Same thing you can also do it on your websites as well. Let's say that this video is related to React. Okay, so I can go to Google and search for a, let's say, a React logo. So let's say a React logo. Okay. And what I'll do, I find this logo pretty nice. So let's go ahead and get this up. Okay. So I can right click on it and say copy image address, the absolute address of the image. So I'll copy that. And here in the video tag, you have an attribute which is called as poster attribute. In that poster, you can pass that link which you just created or which you just grabbed. If you save this, go back to your app and reload it, now you'll see a poster rather than the video. Can you see that? Everyone is able to see that? Now you have a thumbnail in your YouTube or in your video wherein you can use this thumbnail. Now you also have controllers and you can play around with this. Video makes sense? Video makes sense to everyone? How can we integrate videos? So videos, video tag, source, controls, and poster. You're good to go. Okay. Now, alongside with this, I also want to give you guys an idea about YouTube videos. You can also integrate YouTube videos into your application. So YouTube videos. YouTube videos. So let's keep it this way. Copy. And let's paste it down here, YouTube videos. Okay, so let's have a look on how to integrate YouTube videos. So are you interested? Want to have a look? Let's have a look. So, how to play autoplay, automatic. So there is something which is called as autoplay. It's also a thing. So you can use it, but I'm not keeping it. It's also an HTML attribute. You can go ahead and put this autoplay and it will work or play automatic. Okay, so yeah, you can use that. Cool. YouTube videos. Are you ready? Are you ready? Do you want to have a look on YouTube videos? Chale, integrate kare. Let's integrate some YouTube videos. All right, let's go to YouTube first. Let's go to YouTube. And let's try to get some video. Okay, I'm not sure which video should I integrate. Which video should I integrate? Oh, this Dragon Ball Z Goku Vegeta makes sense. So that's yours. Chalo. So let's integrate this video, shall we? No, PUBG. Arey, come on. Punit kaun se duniya mein ji rahe ho yaar? PUBG is done. Let's integrate Goku. Hai na? Let's integrate animes. By the way, BT dubs. I'm a very huge fan of anime, by the way. Yeah. So yeah, me too. Animes I love. Animes and yeah, animes are like cool. Chalo. So let's integrate this. Okay. If you want to integrate a YouTube video, you can click on out here, share button. As you'll see, there is a share button. If you'll click from to the share button, there is an option called as embed. Everyone can see this embed. Embed dikh raha hai? Go to embed and whatever is there, grab this whole thing and copy this. Just copy this. Go back to your code and simply paste this. That's it. That's literally it. And that's the only thing you need to know how to integrate YouTube videos. And now if you save this, reload the page, well, the YouTube video will be down here. You can go ahead and use this YouTube video. You can change the size of that using CSS and all that. But you got the point, right? You got the point? How you can integrate any YouTube video in your application? Exactly. See, YouTube may, whatever videos you're posting, it's going to be absolute until and unless that's not removed. Most of the time, you're going to use this YouTube videos only at the time when you will be using these YouTube videos in your, let's say I'm creating a Innomatics website. So in that case, I want to add a YouTube video, which is there on my Innomatics YouTube channel. So I can do that. Okay. Once more, a quick review how to use that. It's very simple. That all the thing that you need to do is, again, you need to select a video. Any video will do good. You can select any video. So let's say this is the video that I'm selecting. Grammarly helps you work. Okay, so here you will just get the option to share. Just click on share. Rather than sharing it to somebody else, you can just click on embed. Click on embed. Right down here, you will find a embedding iframe. Just copy this up, come back to your application, paste it here, and you're good to go. Ajay, all fine? Make sense? Go to YouTube video, click on share button, click on embed, copy the iframe, paste it in your application, and boom, you have a YouTube video. Make sense? I don't know why it's not working for me. My system is while I'm taking the session, there is a lot of things going behind the scenes in my system. So please, the React application is serving back. So a live server is just giving me a little hiccups. Okay. Yeah. No, not video links. For that, you'll have to create an iframe. I'll highly will recommend you don't create any iframes or anything like that, because the server basically gives you a very weird options and stuff like that. So don't go with video links, go with iframes. Okay. Now with that said and done, we can also select audio also. Yeah, so audio will be there. Like if you go back to your app, this video will play and it will play in your app itself. And as you can see, it has video. It has video and the audio also. Okay. Audio, yeah, definitely. Cool. So chale aage, shall we have a look on few other things as well? Not exactly, but using iframes, you can. That's a very advanced HTML. I'm not going to go there. That's a very, very advanced HTML. Iframes is a very advanced topic. You can do a lot of things with iframes. Okay. Chalo. So if you're ready, we can move ahead, shall we? Shall we move ahead? Right, shall we move ahead? Chale aage? Chalo, nice. Now I'll tell you how to integrate maps. Okay, let's have a look on maps, typically Google Maps. And Google Maps is also exactly the same way how you're integrating this. So let's say Google Maps. All right, now let's go ahead and integrate Google Maps. So for that, all you need to do is to go to maps.google.com. And this is where you will get a map. A full-fledged map is this. It's where it's going to be. From here, you can search a location. Let's say Innomatics Research Labs. Innomatics Research Labs. Okay. And it will just take you to Innomatics Research Labs. Okay. Now, again, from here, what you can do, you can click on the share button. And from also, you can get an option to embed a map. This will also be done using iframes itself, right? Now you can select that how it should be looking like. It should be a small, it should be medium, it should be large. Let's keep it medium. You can even select a custom size, that what should be the length and the width of the iframe, but let's keep it medium for us. Again, you can copy the HTML, go back to your app and paste that down here. Okay, everything will be set for you by default. And again, if I save this and refresh my page, I don't want to save this, I want to save this. And again, if I refresh my page, you'll be able to see a map down here. Getting the point? Guys, getting the point? Okay, so you can even embed maps in your document. Make sense? Make sense now? So this is how we are doing it, and this is how we actually do it in the prod level also. Cool. So with that said and done, let's quickly have a look on one of the MP3. Okay. Though you'll not use it very oftenly, I'll say 99.99% you're not going to use it, but there is something which is called as audio. You can give it a source. It's very simple, straightforward. If you have a music, again, put it in your assets folder, give it a source, and out here also you have something which is called as controls. You can give the controls. It's exactly like as that was the video tab. Okay. How does the embed option comes? You'll have to go there to get the embed option. So again, let's go ahead and search for something else. Let's say Domino's. Okay. So if you go to Domino's Pizza, it's obviously gonna find the Domino's Pizza nearby to me. But yeah, let's say I got this Domino's. Okay. I can click on anything that you have. Okay. And I can go to share and then click to embed a map and copy the HTML down from here. Okay. So once you copy the HTML, you can paste it in your document itself. Make sense? Cool. Any doubts? If you have any doubts, put it in the chat section. So yeah, if you're good till here, quickly give me a yes. We'll move ahead quickly. Good, no? All good, all set. Perfect. Great. I hope you're understanding. Anybody who's finding difficulty? Sorted. Puneet is all sorted. Okay. Chalo. Control. Somebody was asking me for controls. We have multiple videos. By using video source, we can add multiple videos. You're asking me or you're telling me? If you're asking me, then the answer is no. And if you're telling me, then I think I need to search about this. Okay. What should I repeat? Guys, anything you want me to repeat? Controls. Okay. Let's take this example. Okay. This videos as an example. So out here, if you'll see, if you look into this, so I have a video which is playing out there. I have controls to manage where I'm doing and, you know, playing the video and doing all that things, right? Now out here, if I don't give it controls, it will just be a dummy, right? So if I save this and reload this, I'll not have an option to play the video. As you'll see, it's just acting like an image. Though it's a video, but you'll not be able to play this, right? You'll not be able to play this. Controls basically gives the controls to the user in order to change the values of that video. Maybe the slider, or maybe the volume, maybe the picture-in-picture mode, and all these things. But keep in mind, for that, you will have to use something called as controls. So if you have controls and you're giving controls to your user, then only your user will get the controls, either a slider or, you know, changing the volume, picture-in-picture, and all these things. Okay. Avinash, controls make sense? What are controls? Basic things. See, first of all, I don't have any audio in my system. Okay. And if we get time at the end of the session, then we'll go ahead and integrate audios. Will that be okay? Will that be okay? But again, go ahead and try it by yourselves, guys. I've told you how to integrate audios. You'll be having MP3 files. Try to do it by yourself, right? Again, the same thing. You can have not posters out here, but you have controls down here. So controls is something that you can do. And also you can do the same thing by putting it inside an image tag. So inside image, you can go ahead and do that. Got the point? So try it. Try, get your hands dirty with HTML. When you have done something, you can go ahead and look into it. Zoom the map. I didn't get it. Should I zoom the map? Like how zoom the map? You could see that I got an audio here, but yeah, it doesn't have any source, so never mind that. Okay, so this is how the audio is going to look like. But again, you can style it up pretty much however that you want to. So I didn't save it. So let me save it. And let me refresh it. Cool. Shall we move ahead? Shall we move ahead? Yeah, cool. Let's have a look on one very last thing and then we'll start with CSS. And this last thing basically is tables. So let's have a look on tables. So what are we looking into? We're looking into tables. Tables. Now I want to create tables into my HTML. Okay. Now the point is, how can I create tables? Now for you to understand tables, you have to be very, very particular about what are you doing in the table and how do you want to lay out this table. The table sometimes becomes little clumsy, but once you're, okay, one thing more, there are hundreds of ways to create the same table using different elements. What I'll suggest you is the industry way of doing it, and I'll highly will recommend you stay and stick to this, the one I'm explaining it to you. Again, if you'll go to W3 schools, and even if you'll go to MDN networks, this is how they have explained it. But this is an official way of integrating tables. But keep in mind, W3 schools and all these resources tell you a different, a gazillions of other ways. It's gonna look this exact way, but yeah, you can go ahead and use those tables pretty much however that you want to. So are you ready? Let's have a look on them, shall we? Let's have a look on how to integrate tables, or typically what are HTML tables. Let's have a look on that. Now, when you want to integrate tables, you can integrate tables, which is pretty fine. How does a table looks like? A table looks like something like this. This will be a table, right? The table will have rows. The table will have columns. Anyone who is not or still have a little confusion on rows and columns? Because when I used to be a student, I used to have a lot of confusion on what are rows and what are columns. Anyone who's confused with rows, or anyone who's confused with columns? Anyone who's confused with rows and anyone who's confused with columns? Sure. These are rows. Row 1, row 2, row 3. These are columns, C1, C2, C3, C4. These are columns. Okay. Vertical alignments are column, horizontal alignments are rows. Now, there are few things you need to keep in mind. First of all, this is integrated or disintegrated into two proportions. Isko understand karo, what are these two proportions? When you're creating a table, there will be a layout, a basic layout, and this basic layout will be telling that this section, this particular section, as you can see, this is called as table head, wherein you'll keep all your headings on the table. And then this section is called as table body. Table body. So this is how the table looks like. So how to access recorded videos. YouTube channel. Okay. YouTube channel. I'll tell it to you. Okay. Just a second. And at the end of the session, I'll explain it to you how to access video channel. This is called as table head. And this underlying section is called as table body. This table body is then further disintegrated into things, wherein you create rows of the column. Each row of the column in the body. Okay. All right. Inside that, you will have something called as table rows. And in that table rows, you are going to give something called as table data. So how is it? Oh, sorry. How is it disintegrated? Yeah. First, understand this table data. So how is it disintegrated? Let me talk about that. So first of all, you will have a table. In that table, you will have two things, table head, and then you will have something called as table body. In that table body, you will create a table row. And in that table row, you will mention the table data. Getting the point? Guys, getting the point? So a table head and a table body. Inside that table body, each table body will have different TRs. This is one TR, this is another TR. There could be multiple other TRs as well. Each TR will have its own TD. Getting the point? And this is how the table looks like. Same is the case with table head. And in that table head, whatever you want to make it as a table head, you keep it in TH. Got the point? Let's go ahead and see this in action so that you get a very clear idea how this is working. So let's create a table, shall we? Shall we create a table by our own self using HTML? Let's do that. Okay. So let's say what I want to do. I want to create a table. So I'll create a table. As I said, the table is going to contain two things. One is a table head, and the another one will be a table body, just like this, right? Inside the table head, as I said, whatever you want to make, are columns done the same way? Yeah. Either you can design it from the column perspective as well. You can create just columns, but that becomes very, very hectic to create. Okay. So everything should be marked perfectly. Okay, once you do it, the table starts to look presentable. And then you have th inside that. Let's say I'm going to create a employee sheet. So I'll just say employee name. And similarly, I'll copy it, paste it down. I'll create, let's say, 4 columns for that. Let's say employee name, employee email, employee age, and let's say employee designation. Just like this. Now, if I save this and reload, you'll be able to see the columns. Now, again, you're using HTML. It's going to look ugly. Okay, it's going to look ugly. So yeah, this is how we keep it. I'll tell you how to write a border also, but just in a while. Okay, so these are your headings: employee name, employee email, employee age, and employee designation. Now in the body, you will start to give each row values. So here I'll create a TR, and inside that TR, I'll give a TD. Now I have to give 4 TDs for all the things. So let's say Tim Cook, just like this, maybe something like this. Copy it, and we'll have to create 4 rows for that. So let's say tim@apple.com, let's say. And let's say his age is 52, maybe, I don't know. And then you have his designation, he is the CEO, right? If I save this, reload, you'll be able to see the values just like this. Now it looks ugly, I know, it looks ugly, but you can see the table getting created. Same thing, you can also add as many as you want to. So I'll add just one more. So let's say Craig. Okay. So Craig Federici. So let's say Fed underscore Craig @apple.com, something like that. Okay. And let's say he is 40 years old. I don't know, like he's older, but I don't know. And he is the VP of software development. So VP is the. Okay. So this is how it looks like. Got it, guys? How to create tables. And you can see that the table is getting designed somehow. Okay. All good till here. Anything that you want to ask, that what is the head, what is the body, what is the R, what is the D? Everything makes sense? Guys, everything makes sense. Every every element makes sense in the form. Oh, in the table. Yeah, sure. Are you sure? Great. Now, a lot of people would be thinking that would be nice if you could give it a border. So in the table, you have an attribute called as border attribute, and you can give it a value of 1. If you save that, reload it, you'll see this is how it looks like. Got the point? Can you show how to do it with columns? Kaushik, I could have shown it, but I don't want to confuse people down here. Okay. Now, if somebody is interested in looking into how to create it column wise, go ahead and research it by your own self. I just don't want to confuse people. Okay, Kaushik. And if you get stuck anywhere, and even for other people who are interested in looking into how to create tables using columns, if you get stuck anywhere, you know where to find me off. Specifically, now you have Discord, so you can go ahead and ping me up on Discord. Make sense? Okay, and please don't mind that I'm not telling you. The reason I'm not telling you, the reason is that a lot of people here will get confused. For the people who might have understood this, they'll start to get crumbed up with the column part. Okay, so this is one way of creating your tables. The border is just a way how this, if you don't give it a border, it will not create linings around the table. It will look like this. So if you're giving the border is equals to 1, the 1 is basically a Boolean value. Boolean as in like, do you need a border or do not need a border? So you just need to give it a border as for 1. That's it. Okay. So if you refresh it, now you'll have a border, and this border is going to look like this. Okay. All right. Yeah, sure. Why will I not? So as I said, you will have a table. The table is going to look something like this. The table is disproportionate by creating the table as to be having a layout like this. There will be a table head, and then there will be a table body. In the table head, you call it a T head, and inside that T head, you mention your TH. It's like this. So here is where all the TH will be. So this is TH, 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 and TH. Then this whole thing, this whole stuff that you're seeing out here, this will be a part. Okay, first of all, this part that I'm showing in highlighted, the dotted lines, this is your table body. Inside that table body, you will have something which is called as a table row. And inside this table row, you will have table data. This will be your table data. Similarly, out here also, this is the whole table body. Inside that, you will have another TR. This is another TR. And inside that will be your TD. Just like this. Does this make sense? Akanksha? Akanksha makes sense. Aryan makes sense. Got it? Arey, Anjeet, फिर वही बात. Styling, bro. Styling. CSS. Okay? CSS. Just believe in CSS. है So all is well and CSS will take care of it. ठीक है? So styling perspective नहीं पूछता. Styling perspective सिर्फ तब पूछते हैं जिस टाइम पे styling कर रहे हो. Not right now. So when are we? Oh well, this is a good time. इसका श्री गणेश करते हैं. And let's move into CSS, shall we? So let's do the Shri Ganesh for CSS. Karen Shri Ganesh, CSS ka? Ready? Chalo. Great. Chalo. So first thing first, what I'll do. I don't know. Should I explain that to you? पुनीत रो क्यों रहा है? रो मत यार, ऐसे मत करो. तुम रोने लगोगे तो फिर तो मैं और ज्यादा रोने लगूंगा. ऐसे मत करो यार, तुम मेरे को डीमोटिवेट कर रहे हो पुनीत. वेरी बैड. Anyways, we'll see that rather. It's not, even if I keep 1 to 2 sessions, you'll only will understand the basic. HTML पे जा ही नहीं पाएंगे. So first you'll have to learn how to create loops, for loops, conditionals, if, else, ternary operators, and all these things. Nothing. What's so special about tables? Tables is tables. Nothing special about tables. Okay. Can I give you an assignment? There is a topic left behind, and I want you guys to look into an assignment. Are you down for it? Are you down for it? हाँ, चलो. I'll give you an assignment. ठीक है. किसी को आता होगा? राजेंद्र, just give me a second. किसी को आता होगा बोलना मत. I'm pretty sure a few of the people have done HTML before. If somebody knows it, please don't speak it out here. Okay? I'm giving this assignment to everybody. Okay? Everybody. If you know it, good for you. But let other people try as well. Okay? So if you want to make one row big or small, then you'll have to combine it inside a whole TR. Or let's say you want to combine email and age, and you want to create another T head, you can combine them both by creating them into one TR. Okay? Play around with tables. I highly will recommend play around with tables. Try to create kind of like an Excel sheet, kind of like a table. Yeah, merging you're asking. I completely get it. Merge both the cells and put it inside one TR. Okay? Row span, call span function. Right. We'll have a look on it, guys. I'm not pretty sure. I stay a lot busy. Like I really stay a lot busy. So I'm not sure if I'll be there for that. But yeah, we'll see that. Okay. Are you up for an assignment? Let's talk about an assignment, shall we? Let's have an assignment. Why they don't actually, Bhavani? I'm giving that only the assignment. Now, first, I have 2 questions which nobody asked me except for Bhavani. I don't know how. But there is something that you might have seen called as a footer. Footer dekha hai? Any website has a footer. Any website has a footer. In that footer, listen to me carefully. In that footer, you might have seen a lot of people writing symbols like copyright symbols. And then they write copyright 2021, let's say Innomatics or something like that. Seen that? This is one problem that I have. Another problem that I have, I want to create a website. पहले इस problem को समझना, this problem is important. I want to create a website which shows what? Which shows the HTML code to the user. समझो इसको. So I have a website. This is a HTML page. This whole thing is a HTML page. And in that HTML page, I want to print the code of the HTML like this. HTML, then I'll have a head and end head, something like this. And then I have a body. And in that body, I'm writing an H1 and I'm writing something down here and end H1. And let's say an end body and an end HTML, something like this. You got the point, right? I want to create a website which shows the HTML code, something like this. Now, if I write it like in traditional HTML, it will get rendered. But what do I want? I want to display HTML code in an HTML page. I hope the problem makes sense. The problem makes sense. Got it? I'll frame a document for you people and I'll share it down in your Discord groups. If you're not a part of Discord, go ahead and be a part of Discord. There I'll share you this assignment. A HTML code in a HTML page. That's the problem. Arey, Harshita, nahin, kuch nahi bolna hai. Even if you have doubts, don't speak about assignments. Okay? Don't speak about assignments. Do it by yourself. I'll see. Deadline, aaj ka hi deadline hai, kal dena hai assignment. You have to submit the assignments tomorrow. Dev, not gonna work. Okay? Go ahead, research. When you're learning something, it's not like you have to attend the session. Go ahead, research, try, do it yourself, and then it's where these sessions are gonna be more fruitful. I'll explain it to you. Don't worry. I'll explain it to you. Okay? Okay, Avinash? How to submit it? I'll tell you. Okay, Avinash? So, website like the W3 schools or stuff like that. Okay? Chalo, start करें अभी? No, nothing in CSS. कुछ CSS नहीं करना है. 2 questions is symbols like copyright symbols inside the footer, how to print them. And then there is another is going to be how to show the HTML code. अरे कर रहे हैं, CSS ही start करें. Chill. I'll explain you how to submit it in the Discord itself. I'll be creating a document and it will contain all the notes, what is to be done and what is not to be done related to the assignment. And the third thing, which I'll also share out with you, is something which is called as HTML semantics. Okay, so there will be 3 questions in your HTML document. Okay, this is what you'll have to do the research and we'll have to share it before tomorrow's session starts. I should be getting all the assignments. Okay, no, not any. No, sorry, karna. Sorry. I'm really sorry if I hurt your feelings. Sorry, karna. Yeah, exactly, students. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. Yeah, duh, I am. Okay. Okay, guys, one thing more. I have a very bad habit of joking around. Okay, so I sometimes semantics. Science search to karo. Go do research first. Once you do the research, then you'll get the point. Okay, na? Research करना तो start करें. अभी मैं ही बता दूंगा semantics क्या था आपने क्या किया, है ना? And one thing more, please don't get offended. Yeah. Please don't get offended. I have a very bad habit of joking around. Sometimes I joke around and please don't get offended for that. Okay? Does anyone has got offended? I'm really sorry for that if you have. Have you? Lol? Lol kya lol? I'm saying sorry and you're being lol? Expecting nahi hai yaar. Very bad. Chalo. So the whole point of explaining is that don't mind my words, or sometimes I have a trend of offending people, so yeah, been there. Okay, that's nice. If you are not being offended, then that's good for me. Oh, अरे ये तो ज़्यादा हो गया यार. This is like too much. ना प्यार सहा नहीं जाएगा हमसे. Please हमारी बात समझिए. All right. That's what I'm talking about. Header, footer, articles, sites, sections, and all that things. How to center a dev blog. Now you are making me offended, Arun. Try. You will get a lot of difficulties. Then we'll start to talk on that. But okay, chill. Research, and then when you'll have issues, come to me. Okay, come to me later on. Chal, start करें अभी. Let's Shri Ganesh the CSS. Shall we? Start करें. Cascading style sheets. Akanksha, up to you completely. And the answer is, if you have attended the session more than 50%, yes, it will be. Rajendra, you don't need to know the questions, you'll get the document. You will get the document, okay, in the Discord itself, okay. Before 2, you'll get the document, okay. All right. CSS. Akanksha, it will be uploaded in the YouTube channel. Like this. Go to YouTube and you can look into Innomatics Research Labs. Okay, and you will get this. Don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel. Okay, I should at least see 650 subscribers by the end of the day. Okay, na? So please subscribe. Even for the people who will not be a part of the internship, like we'll be coming off with internship. I'll keep on posting videos here for the FSD internship also. Okay. Ads, ads unnecessary. Ads are necessary. The whole point is you get the content. The content is necessary. Like, share, and subscribe for sure. For sure. You'll get it. Today's video will be uploaded. देखो, अगर तुम यही बातें करते रहोगे, so I'll not be able to start CSS. नहीं पढ़ना CSS, नहीं पढ़ना, that's fine. It's completely fine. We can chill. They don't want to have a look on CSS. CSS देखना नहीं देखना है. Yeah, okay. See, this is called as FOMO, fear of missing out. All right, so let's start off. Now, jokes apart, let's start with CSS. CSS is really important. अब देखो, Discord group name. अब name का क्या करोगे? You should be there in the Discord, है ना? अच्छा, okay, yeah, okay. If somebody is not a part of the channel, the FSD workshop, what's the name? I think it's front end dev or something like that. Okay, so if you are not a part of the channel, DM me. कि add कर दो हमको, ठीक है? So please do that. Yeah, you will get the Sriram, you'll get the certificate. Yes. Full stack dev or something like that. अब ऐसे ही मुकेश मुझे याद नहीं रहेगा, DM कर देना मेरे को, and I'll add it. CSS start next day today. Complete the questions. Which questions? What questions? What questions are we talking about? Which questions? Okay, guys. Listen, let me start CSS. At least I'll finish off the basics. The real CSS will be done tomorrow. Okay? Real as in like fonts and all this, we'll do it tomorrow. Okay, chalo, let's start. So, CSS. CSS is again a very foundational styling program. Okay, now this is a programming language. Try and understand this way. This is a programming language, unlike like HTML. This you can call it as a program. CSS is a programming language. Here, this is going to make a lot of decisions for you. What is to be done, what it's going to look like, how it's going to be. It's going to make decisions for you out of the box, unlike HTML. HTML just used to print the data or just do the markup of the data. But here, CSS will take care of whatever you want to. But here is a big only if, and listen, and this is important, only if you're writing the correct CSS. If you're writing the correct CSS, then only that will get rendered, else you'll not find anything. So there are few things you need to know beforehand where we go into CSS properties and selectors and all these things. There are few basic principles you need to understand about CSS, that how basically CSS works. Because a lot of people make a lot of very common generic mistakes, and case sensitive is fine, but even much more than that. People make few silly mistakes and then they come up to somebody and they try to write it on Stack Overflow that it's not working, and then they embarrass themselves. Okay, and this happens. This really happens. So there are few case studies which I don't know a lot of people miss out or they don't pay much attention to it, but it's actually very, very important. So cascading style sheet. What is cascading? First, let's talk about that. Style sheet makes sense that it's a sheet which will be containing all the styling attributes, how to style. But what is cascading? Cascading, okay. Let's take an example for waterfall. Have you seen waterfall? Have you seen a waterfall? I'm pretty sure, not like maybe not in real, but maybe in the movies or Nat Geo or something. So if you have a look on the waterfall, all the water drops down at one go, right? There is a plenty of water that goes in just in a second, right? Cascading basically means the same. Cascading means that when you apply dozens of styles in a second or in a frame, that is called as cascading. Cascading means quickly doing styling for your document. That is cascading. That is why it's called as cascading style sheet, a style sheet on which the HTML works like a second. Okay, and you'll realize that. And you'll be like, okay, yeah, this is how it looks. But actually behind the scene, what happens is your HTML gets rendered. So I'll just tell you what the life cycle is. Life cycle of the whole application is very simple. Life cycle is that first your HTML will get rendered before, of course, if there is no HTML, how can you style that up? The moment you get that HTML, then the CSS runs. And when the CSS run, then the CSS selectors run. And once the CSS selectors run, then is where your styles get appended. The styles get added. This is what the life cycle of an application is going to be. Okay, so first the HTML gets rendered, then CSS get applied, then the CSS selectors get selected, and then the styles get added to your comport or to your element. Okay, so this is what the life cycle is. Now, not wasting too much time, let's dive into CSS. And first of all, let's see how to add CSS in an HTML document. Let's have a look on that first. Very important thing, and you should know. There are two ways of including CSS in your document. First is called as internal CSS, or rather I should be giving it in this way. First is called as inline CSS. The another one is called as internal CSS. And then the third is called as external CSS. Now you can use any of the three. Most commonly, 90% of the time people use it this way. But again, you can go ahead and use them also. Okay. So let's see what is CSS. Now, don't go too much into the coding part, that what am I writing in the coding, what are the things that I'm using. But yeah, we'll talk about that. So are you ready? Are you ready? Let's have a look how we can integrate a CSS in our HTML document. So for that, I'll go to CSS and I'll open this file in my Google Chrome. Okay. So I don't have images, right? I don't have images. Chalo, I'll add these images anyway later words. Okay. Chalo. So this is a basic HTML that I've created for you. I'll add that up. Or let's do one thing. Let's go to CSS, index CSS. Oh, sorry, index.html. And out here, I have added this as like this, but I'll add it like this now. So assets, picture one, save that, reload, and this is how it looks like. Okay, very simple app, very simple app. And let's do the same thing down here as well. Let's add an image just like this. So I have assets and picture one, just like this. So this is a very basic thing that I've created down here. I have a table. Let me actually go through how the document looks like. So I have an H1, I have a paragraph, I have a H2, I have an image, I have a paragraph, I have a span, and the span I'll explain it to you in a little while because this is related to CSS though. Simultaneously as a like, that's what I'm telling you, how to integrate CSS in your HTML. That's what I'm telling you. Okay. And then I have a span, as you'll see down here, I have a span. And then I have a UL. In that UL, I have a LI like this. And then I have an OL. Oh. And then I have a OL. And in that OL, I have an LI. Okay, just like this. So in the UL, I have an LI, which you can see down here. And then I have an OL, and inside that OL also I have an LI, which you can see up here. Then I have services, then I have an anchor tag, then I have a table, then I have an image, then I have an H2, and then I have a form. And that form looks ugly, by the way. So we'll style that up. So shall we start? Shall we start? If you're ready, we can start off. There's a mistake in line number 18. And what's the mistake? Mistake, batao mistake. LI. What's the mistake in the LI? What's the mistake? ठीक तो लिखा है हाँ तो क्या हुआ OL के अंदर LI नहीं आ सकता या OL के अंदर UL नहीं आ सकता UL के अंदर OL भी तो आ सकते हैं अरे LI, this LI and this whole OL is a part of your UL. Puneet, you can keep anything inside anything. Inside H1, you can have H2. Yeah. Now का मतलब क्या है? It was just like this only. Okay. So let me do one thing. First, let me, yeah, this is called as nesting. So let me actually quickly add this to Git first. Array, I'll explain you. Wait, chill, dude, chill. Git commit, let's say CSS start, or let me actually add this way, HTML end and CSS start. Okay, you can have a look on it on GitHub though. And I'm just gonna git push this. Okay, so the GitHub link that I shared you yesterday, I'll even share it at the end of the session. You can find all the code down there. It's taking a lot of time to commit the changes. Oh, I have a video also. Never mind. Huh? Oh, acha. I didn't see that. Chalo. So start kare. Now, if you want to link any CSS into your document, you can do that by using three things. Chinam, abhi batate hain span. You can include CSS using three things. Either what you can do is to add inline CSS. First, let's start with inline CSS. Okay. What is inline CSS? Inline CSS basically is a way Listen to me carefully. It's a way wherein you can use the CSS like a HTML attribute. What did I say? Inline CSS is a way wherein you can use CSS like a HTML attribute, just like source or href or controls, all these attributes that you've seen. For a given element, you can use style as a or CSS as a HTML attribute. Let me show you how. Let's say I want to style this h1. Okay. So in that h1, what I can do, I can use an attribute called as style. And inside the style, I can use whatever I want to. Let's say I'm not going to go into too much of coding perspective or CSS perspective, but there is something which is called as a color property, just a color property. And then I put a colon, and then I mention what color do I want this to be. Let's say red. Okay. Now, if I save this and reload this, you'll see now the H1 is in red color. Can you see that? Everyone is able to see that. Don't go into the coding, but try and understand the first part or the first way of integrating CSS in your HTML is by using inline CSS. And this inline CSS, you use style as to be a HTML attribute. So style is an HTML attribute here. Now again, you can go ahead and do that to anything. Okay. Now I'll explain you a lot of people, because you guys, I don't know why you're so worried about spans, but now this is where the span comes into picture. Let's say you wanted to do is that in the paragraph, let's say this, now it's written in Spanish. I literally don't know how to speak Spanish, but let's say UT till venium or something like that. You want to style this only thing and you want to make this go, let's say yellow, something like that, or you want to style it somehow. So you have a inline selector in HTML, which is called as span. Why do we use span? So that we can only use that particular part of the content and go ahead and style that off, right? For example, I don't know where this is. I think it's somewhere here, right? So from here to here, I want to style this off. So what will I simply will do? I'll cut this and I will write this inside a span and paste it. Now, if I save this and refresh, you're not going to see any change because span is inline by default. Got the point? What is span? So span and divs are two different universes. Divs make something look like a block. Span makes something look like an inline. Got the difference? Everyone got the difference? What's the difference between a span and a div? So span basically makes you look something like inline. Divs basically make something look like block. And now again, inside that span, you can go in that span and you can style it pretty much however you want to. Maybe let's say color to be, let's say blue. Let's say blue. Now if I save this and refresh this, now you'll see only that part of the content to be blue. Got the point now? Got the point? Up dekho. See guys, I want to be very, very clear about everything. I want to be very, very clear on one thing. Listen to me very carefully. I will explain you everything in CSS. Everything you need to know about CSS, I'll explain it to you. Flexbox, grids, everything. Alignment and everything. But the point is, don't keep poking me ki ye karao, wo karao, aise karo, waise karo. Don't poke me. Okay? I'll explain you everything. You'll get the whole CSS. I'll explain you everything. Colors, gradients, everything. Please don't poke me. Okay? I highly request you. Please. Got it? Got the point? Okay? We'll do everything. Don't worry. Don't worry about the part. Guys, make sense? Does that make sense? Okay, na? So we'll cover out everything. Don't worry. Spans. Span is just a smaller part of content that you have in your HTML document, and you just want to style that particular part. Maybe let's keep it this way. The span that I've selected out here, with starting from lorem ipsum. Where is that? Yeah, here. This lorem ipsum. You want to make it underline, or you want to make it bold and italic, everything in the same time. Okay, guys. Let's say I want to do that. I want to make it bold. I want to make it italic. I want to make it underline or something like that. Okay. So for that, either you can use your HTML elements or you can go ahead and use style. Okay. So you can use style and you can make it. Abhi, as of for now, bold italic will have a look on it, but let's say I'll make it yellow. Save that, refresh it, and that part will be in yellow. Got the point? So span is basically an inline way of giving styles to some a part of your content in your HTML. So you just wrap it around the div and pretty much try to style however you want. Spans and inline CSS. Make sense to everyone? Anyone who's confused with spans or inline CSS, please do let me know. If you're good, quickly give me a yes, then we'll move ahead and start to discuss the other parts. Shall we? Okay. So what did we see? What did we see? We saw that the inline CSS, you can use style as a HTML attribute. That's what we saw. Okay. As an HTML attribute, just like this. Okay, now? So this is what we saw. Now comes the internal CSS. In the internal CSS, here the style is used as a HTML element rather than an HTML attribute. Here you use CSS as to be an HTML element. And this is basically given in your head tag. Remember head tag, guys? Remember head tag? And in that head tag, I told you all the metadata, a data related to the data or the info about the data is usually present here in the head tag. So basically a style is also a metadata. Guys, yeah? So style is also metadata for us. So what do? We write something down here and we create style as a element rather than as an attribute. Does this make sense? What have I done? Is it making sense that what have I done? So here is where you can use CSS as to be a element rather than a attribute. And here you can select whatever you want. Let's say I want to style all the H2s that I have in my application. I want to style H2, just H2. Okay. Difference between link and style. Link and style. Ram, I didn't get your question. Link and style. I still didn't get your question. Okay. So again, I can just go ahead and use color property just to show you. Well, we'll have a look on other properties as well in a little while. But let's say I want to make the color as to be, let's say, indigo. Okay. Now, if I save this and reload the page, you'll now see about me is indigo. Does this make sense? Got the point? Got the point? Now you can use whatever you want to. Just like Ram is asking for a difference. There is actually no difference. There is one difference, which I'm about to show you in a little while. But yeah, there is not much of a difference and you'll see everything will work completely fine. Even if you're using inline CSS, even if you're using internal CSS, and even if you'll be using external CSS, everything is going to work. But there is a problem with something that will have a look on it. Okay. It's mandatory, but only if you're also giving an another property. Let's suppose I want to give an another property of saying, hey, the background or chalo, like we'll talk about that. But if you're also mentioning an another property, let's say property 2, and then you're also giving, let's say, the value 2. So in that case, you'll have to give a semicolon. If you then don't give a semicolon, this will not work. Okay. So semicolons are mandatory in CSS. Got the point? Guys, getting the point? Great. Perfect. All right. So inline CSS and internal CSS. What should I explain? Semicolon part, Kaushik? You're talking about the semicolon part? See, inside an element, it's not like that we are only going to keep one property. There are going to be multiple properties related to CSS. Maybe I want to change the color. I also want to change the background. I also want to animate this. I also want to put animations inside it and all these things. So there are going to be 10 different elements that I'll have, or 10 different properties that I want to add in a HTML element. In that case, what will be happening? I'll have to put semicolons for both of them to work. You're saying this and the semicolon is kind of like and this also, this second property also. Got the point, Kaushik? Chalo. So this is your inline and internal. Most of the time you're not going to use internal CSS, like hardly ever. Most of the time you're going to work is external CSS. So I'll just do is I'll comment this off. Just for your understanding perspective, I'm just gonna keep it, but yeah, we'll have a look on it. All right. Now, generally, what do? We keep a separate style sheet. That is why CSS is called as a style sheet. So what do? Inside the CSS, we create another file, and I'm just gonna name this styles.css. Okay, styles.css. And out here, Rajendra, Abhi, I explained you something. I said I'll explain you everything. Wait for the term to come. I'll explain you everything. Okay? Everything I'll explain. Chill. Vivek, वही बता रहा हूँ. It's not priority. This is called a specificity. वही explain कर रहा हूँ. ठीक है? Just give me a second. Okay, just want to know, why are you guys so much like in a hurry? This is day 3. And like, why are you guys so much like, I'll explain you CSS to in depth, you will get rid of CSS and you'll be like, damn, there is so much to know about CSS. Chill, it's just starting. We've just started CSS and look at you. You're asking about priorities and colors and color codes. Chill, everything will be done. वही तो किया अभी नहीं merge किया तो. You're giving the styling as an inline. You're providing style as a element. You're basically merging all of this, right? Getting the point, Abhinav? Huh? So here you're using style as to be inline. Here you're using style as to be internal. Okay, so that's what you're doing. Then comes out the third, or actually the fourth, the third way of using your CSS is to link a different file into your application. So for that, you use something which is called as a link tag in your head. So in the head, we write a link tag, and there is a relationship attribute. This relationship attribute basically tells what this file does for you. And by default, it's selected to style sheet. Okay, and this is actually a style sheet for us. So we are basically going to tell in the same folder, we will have CSS, or rather, let's keep it this way. Let's keep it styles.css, which is because it's in the same folder, it's not gonna matter because remember relative links. So this is what we'll be doing. Okay, so this is how we have linked our CSS file, which is down here, styles.css, and we are just giving that in our HTML and saying, hey, I am going to write styles here, and you are supposed to append these styles to the document because I've linked the CSS to this document. Getting the point? This is called as external CSS. This is called as external CSS. Why is it called external CSS? External CSS means we are writing CSS somewhere else, but now it's your job, HTML, to go ahead and render that up. Got it now? Got it? So this is internal, and this is inline, and this is external. So these are the 3 ways you can link a CSS into a document. Got the point? All good till here? All good till here? Perfect. Now let's start to talk of how to use CSS. And what is CSS? We know it's a styling language, and we'll be doing a lot of stuff in the styling perspective. But how to use CSS, and what are a few things you need to keep in mind while you're writing CSS? So that's what we'll have a look on. First of all, we'll have a look on something which is called as CSS selectors. And once we know these CSS selectors, then we'll talk about something which is called as CSS specificity. I'm not pretty sure how many of you know about this, but yeah, this is what we'll be doing. And this is how we make comments in the CSS by putting a forward slash, a star, whatever you want to make a comment, put it in between, and then put a star and then a forward slash. Okay, so this is how we put a comment in your CSS, just like this. So this is your comment. So forward slash, star, anything you want to keep, let's say any content, and then you have star, and then you have a forward slash. So this is how we put anything in comment, and this is called as a comment. Rather, I should write it as a comment. Okay, so I'll be writing a lot of comments for you to get a clear idea that what I'm doing. So first, let's start off with something called as CSS selectors. Now, when you talk about selectors, there are three types of selectors. Okay, there are three types of CSS selectors. One is called as an element selector, which is very, very common. Then you have something which is called as attribute selector. And then you have a third thing, which is called as pseudo selectors. Pseudo selectors. The same use, like if I'm writing something, somebody should know what I'm writing. Okay, na? Let's say you have a huge application and you're creating a huge lot of big of a style sheet for the document. So at least you should know that, hey, I'm writing this for the heading, I'm writing this for the footer, I'm writing this from the form. So this is why you use selectors. When this will become clumsy, Subhan, then you will get an understanding that why are we using comments. Comments basically makes your code more readable. So let's say if I'm styling something for heading, so I'll comment this off for heading, and then somebody will be looking into my style sheet, they'll get an idea, oh, this is the styling for heading and all that things. Got the point? Okay. So shall we start with selectors, guys? I'm not pretty sure if we'll be able to complete all the selectors, but yeah, we'll try to complete that off. So are you ready? Are you ready? If you are ready, I'm also ready. Okay. So let's do one thing. Let's see that if I want to style a paragraph, let's say I'm just taking this whole paragraph, because if you'll have a look on your HTML, I have a whole paragraph starting from here to here. I have a whole paragraph. Let's say I want to style this whole paragraph. Okay. So what I can do, I can simply say, and let's talk about how selectors work. Selectors are very simple. Selectors basically use the name of the selector. You give the selector, then you put a colon, and then you give the value to that selector, right? Or let me actually break this down this way. You select a selector, okay? Then you start with the curly brackets. Here you mention the property name. The name of the property will learn a lot of different properties, and then you give the value of that property. And this is how you write CSS. This is the generic way of writing CSS, and there is no other way of writing CSS. It's the only way of writing CSS. So what is the selector? The selector is a thing you want to select from the document. That is a selector. So what is a selector? A selector is a thing you want to select from the CS or from your HTML to your CSS. That is a selector. For example, I want to select the paragraph from my document. So P, the paragraph, will be my selector. And then I want to write something in that paragraph. What is that? Let's say I want to change the color of that paragraph to, let's say, gray. I don't want it anymore to be black, but I want it to be gray. So now if I save this and refresh this page, now you'll see the whole stuff is covered out. All the paragraphs will be now covered off with gray color. Does this make sense? Does this make sense? That what have we done? Got the point? Got the point? This is one of the selectors that we have seen, which is the element selector. So what are we doing? We are selecting something from the elements, the HTML elements that we have, right? But this basically gets a lot more complicated. Do you want to have a look on it? Do you want to have a look on it? Should I make this a little bit more complicated so that you get a clear idea that what is this all about? Guys, let me actually confuse you for a little bit so that you get a very clear understanding. Okay, Now out here, I have a H1, right? I can style this H1 using element selector because that's what we have just seen. We saw that I can select something from the HTML and I can give it whatever properties that I want to give it to, right? So let's go ahead and select this H1. So I selected H1 and here I want to set the color property as to be indigo. And now if I save this and reload the page, where is the indigo color? For the people who know, just wait. But this is a problem, right? Everyone can see this problem. That even if I'm giving the styles, even if I'm making the color as to go indigo, it's still not working. It's not, yeah, semicolon. Okay, let's put a semicolon, save that, refresh this, still not working. Why? No, there is only one H1 that I have. There is only one H1, this H1, others are H2. Everyone can see that? I only have one H1 in my whole document. Getting the point now? This is called as precedence or specificity, which I'm talking about. Getting the point? Getting the point? Guys, yes, no? Here you can see this, if I hover over H1, you will see selector specificity has to be 0, 0, 1. Everyone can see that? Everyone can see that if I'm selecting a selector or if I'm having a selector, that selector, the specificity has a value of 0, 0, 1. Getting the point? What is the 0, 0, 1? I'll explain it to you, but everyone can see the selector specificity 0, 0, 1. Let me explain you what do I mean by 0, 0, 1. Okay, let's take this a little bit more further. Let's keep it this way. Now in the HTML, if you'll see, everyone can see this. No, it's not 250, 250, 250. Abhi explain kar rahe hain JavaScript. Ruko. Ye JavaScript, why are you learning CSS? JavaScript, why are you learning CSS? Oh, JavaScript be like, I know myself. I know JavaScript. All I don't know is CSS. So I came here to understand CSS because CSS is confusing. JS, is this the way? Is this the point? Huh? You know yourself, you know JavaScript, so you'll be like, CSS, you're confusing. Okay, so I'm here to understand you. Okay, yeah, so don't judge me. Never mind. So that was a bad joke, but never mind. I was just trying to you people, but never mind. It didn't work. Anyways, yeah, coming back. That was a real bad joke, Arun. You need to level up a little bit. Never mind. It's fine. Chops honi thi wo ho gayi, but I know you'll start judging me now, saying he doesn't have sense of humor. But it's okay, I can live with it. I feel sad, but kahan leke jaye sadness? Hai na? I'm sad. Anyways, coming back. So you ready? Are you ready? Can we use this in both in CSS? No, Rajan. No. Sorry to say, but you can't. No. You have to use curly brackets. तुम यो कौशिक जो हमारी बातें समझ पा रहे हो, बाकी तो everybody is laughing on me behind the scenes, है ना? That is different thing. That is a different thing. Oh, I'll explain it to you. That is something else. That is not this. I'll explain it to you. Okay, I'll explain it to you. Don't worry. Itna tension mat lo yaar. Chill. Okay. Now everyone, just pay attention. Everyone is here. I want to explain you a few things. Then I'll leave everything for tomorrow's session. Okay. So are you ready? Are you ready? Just quickly, let's have a look. Then I'll explain you something of a specificity, and then we'll end up with the session. And tomorrow we'll start off with a few other parts. Okay, colors and gradients and stuff like that. So if you'll have a look on the H2, हाँ, तो क्या हुआ? एक ही H1 है तो क्या हुआ? यहाँ देखो ना, तभी तो I'm explaining you this. Subhan, just have a look out here. I have two H2, as you can see. I have an H2 about me and H2 has to be services. These are the two H2 that I have, about me and services. Everyone can see this? Everyone can see this? About me and services. So if let's say if I go to my style CSS and if I write h2 and give them both a color property as to be, let's say, green. Okay. So if I save this and reload, you'll see both the h2s will now be in green color. Everyone can see that? Everyone is able to see this? That both the h2 will get selected, no matter what. If I had another h2 also, so let's say just after this h2, if I write another h2 and say another heading and say that and refresh this, that heading will also be coming in the green color, right? That will also come in the green color. बता रहे हैं वही explain करने के लिए I'm explaining you this. हाँ, अभी वही explain करने के लिए I'm explaining you this. Everyone can see that no matter how many h2 that I have, or no matter how many h1 do I have, if I'm writing something in the element, everything in the element will get selected off. And that's a problem for us. And that definitely will be a problem for us. What if I don't want all the other h2 to get selected, but I only want this h2 to get selected? That will be a problem for me. Guys, that will be a problem for me. That only I wanted to do was to select this about me, but I don't want it to select services or another heading to be like that. So I'm explaining you two things out here. What do we do? You'll find a lot of people writing IDs and writing classes. Okay. So there are attributes called as ID attribute and a class attribute. If you want to make something unique, you keep it ID. If you want to make something generic, you keep it class. For example, if I do is that for this h2, I give it an ID of, let's say, about dash me, just like this. And for this, I give it an ID of, let's say, services. And for this, I give it an ID of other, or just other. And I save this and refresh it. It will still be there. These stylings will still be there because all these things are still h2 and you've selected styles as to be h2, right? But now what I can do is, even if I have this h2, I can still go ahead and select this about me and can change the CSS property. How? By using something which is called as ID attribute, which I've given to h2, because h2 has an ID of about me. So I can just go down here and say about me, about dash me is what I want to select. But in this, I want to keep the color as to be, let's say, yellow. If I save this, reload, it will still not work. It will still not work. The reason is that there is no element like about me, and this will select from the element, because as you'll see, it's looking for elements. But here you'll have to tell your CSS, hey, I'm not looking for selectors. I'm not looking for elements. I'm looking for an ID. So this is how you write it. Slash depicting ID saying about me. Now if I save this and refresh this, now you'll see the styling will change. Everyone can see that? Everyone is able to see that? Getting the point? Now, this is actually important to understand in CSS, that if you'll hover over about me, you'll see the selector specificity has to be 1, 0, 0. Everyone can see that? Everyone is able to see selector specificity as to be 1, 0, 0. But in H1, the specificity is 0, 0, 1. Now you can identify the difference. Now you can identify the difference, people. Got the point? Got the point now? Tick. Now I'll tell you about class. If let's say I wanted this H2 and this anchor tag, or maybe let's not keep it this way. Let's keep it this way. Let's say I wanted this UL and this H2 to have the same color. Getting the point? Getting the point? If I want this UL and this h2, I'm explaining you. अभी पहले इसको समझ लो, then I'll come to this coding 0,0,1 and 1,0,0,0. I'll explain it to you. But if let's say I wanted this h2 and this ul to have the color as to be whatever I want to, I can mention the same class as down here. Let's say I want to give it a class and say, hey, I will have a class as to be, let's say, color me. Let's say this is the class, color me. Color me is the class. You can keep it whatever you want. So here I'll get rid of this ID and I'll put the class. But again, even if you had an ID, you can keep it whatever you want to. You can even give it a class. Now, if I save this and go back, and here what I can do, I can select this as to be dot, because keep in mind, it's a class. It's not an ID. It's not an element. It's a class. So for class to be selected, you'll have to put a dot in front of it. And let's say color dash me. Now, if I want to set the color as to be, let's say, what should I keep? Let's say, let's keep it gray, just to see that. Now, if I save this and reload, now you'll see along with the heading, the whole paragraph is now gray. Everyone can see that? Everyone can see that? Getting the point? Getting the point? All good. Now, if you hover over it, if you hover over color me, now you'll see the selector specificity has to be 0,1,0. Everyone can see that? Everyone can see that? So now what have we understood? We only have understood that if you want to understand the specificity, if we want to understand the specificity simply says, hey, if you want to be specific about a styling, so first priority, I'm going to give it to the ID, which is this part. That is why it was showing you the specificity has to be 1,0,0. That means this is the highest order precedence that will be given to any element. Then the second preference is given to the class. That is why out here, you're seeing the preference has to be 0,1,0. That means this will be given the second precedence. So here it was 1,0,0. And the third precedence is basically given to the element which you are selecting as to be element. That is why it gives you 0,0,1, which is this part. Getting the point? Getting the point? So if you are selecting something, so telling your CSS specifically, the best option is to go for class. If you don't want to be that specific, you can give it a class. And when you have to be very generic, you have to give it a element. How many of you understood this specificity as a principle? Selector specificity. How many of you got this? Got the point? Everyone? So most specific is ID. Most specific, less specific is class. Third specific is element. Should I repeat? Let me repeat. I'll keep this the way it is, right? I'll keep it the way it is, what I've written down here, right? Let me actually get rid of this. Let's do one thing is that let's select H2 now, okay? So if you'll have a look down here, the color me is a class, right? So what is less specific than class? Element. As you will see that H2 was given a color of green. And same way about me, which was also an H2, was given a color of yellow. Which one of the both got executed? This, because class is more specific as that of element. Guys, getting the point? Are you getting the point, everyone? That this H2 was given a class of green. This about me was also given a color of yellow. Both of them are H2. But here, this got selected because ID is more specific than element, because element comes at number 3, but ID comes in number 1. So this will get applied. This will not get applied. Oh, sorry, H2 will not get applied. The ID will get applied. Got the point now? Specificity. Specificity makes sense. I just want to explain you one more thing and then we'll end up with the session. Can I show it to you? This might confuse you up a little bit, but I just want to tell it to you because this is important. Okay. Now, what have you understood from this? That ID is most specific, right? The ID is the most specific. That's what we understood. Most specific part could be the ID, right? Yeah, as I told you, it's kind of confusing, but you'll have to wrap your head around with it. And you might get confused a little bit more after getting that. Yeah, ICE, that is going to be ID first, class second, element to be third, right? So you can keep it ICE, okay? ICE. ID should be unique, yes, yes. Even if you keep multiple IDs and give it to multiple different elements, it will work, but it's not a good way of writing CSS. Please don't do that. Because when you'll be doing JavaScript, that will basically get your whole application cluttered up, because there is a function called as get element by ID, and that only returns with one element. So that way, if you'll be having multiple IDs, your JavaScript will get confused. So please don't do that. Keep IDs as to be unique. Okay, Ravi? Always understand that IDs are supposed to be unique. Got the point? Now, I'm doing one thing and try to wrap your head around with this. Wrap your head around with this. I have an H1, right? I have an H1. And what we understood that ID is most preceded one. So let's give it an ID, and let's give it an ID of heading, just a heading. Okay? And let's save that heading. Let's come back to style sheet, and I gave somebody a heading of a ID of heading. Let's try to color this off to, let's say orange. Okay. Now, if I save this and reload the page, where is the styling? Where is the styling? It's still red. Why is this not getting changed? What we just learned was heading, which are given with an ID. ID was supposed to be more specific, yes or no? Guys, IDs were supposed to be most specific. It should have got there. But the whole point here is that when you talk about specificity, out of all these things, everything will be written down if you write inline CSS somewhere. So inline CSS, if you write, this is the most precise CSS that you can write. Most precise, I should write. If you are not giving inline CSS, then this sheet will work. ID, class, element. Got the point? So the only thing you need to understand that most preceded is inline CSS. First precedence is your ID. Second precedence is your class. And the third precedence is your element. This is the only thing you need to remember. Rest, everything is nothing to be remembered of. If you got this point, please give me a yes. If you didn't get this point, please ask me, I'll explain it to you. Got the point? So always keep in mind, inline CSS is the most specific way of targeting onto an element. If you target it well, good. If you're not using inline CSS, then the ID, class, and element will work completely fine. First precedence ID, second precedence class, third precedence element. If you're good till here, quickly give me a yes, then we'll move ahead and end up with the session. Can we end up with the session? All good? So let's keep it till here for the day. And tomorrow we'll try to see and get into colors and gradients and a lot of different things. Okay. So for that, what I'll do, I'll put this up, use for versus ID. I still didn't get your question. Use for versus ID. Can you be more specific with the question? I didn't get your question. I'm giving you that only. So it will be CSS specificity is what we understood from today. And I'll just refresh this. I'm sharing you out to the today's GitHub code. Don't worry. Both are variables. Okay, so you can get the code from here, guys. Okay, You can start this just in case if you want it to be with you. So out here, if you go to CSS, if you go to styles.css, you'll get everything that we have done today. And also, you'll find the whole of the index.html that I have. Bhavani, I'll highly will recommend you DM me. So something which is not related to the course, if you want to talk about that, DM me upon Discord. And the people who are not added yet onto their respective channels, please DM me. I'll make sure that it's done. It's fine. It's fine. You can go through the video, okay? And also, I'll take a quick recap on tomorrow's session. So don't worry about that, okay? Okay, now send me the Discord group link. Yeah, I'll do that. So copy that, and I'll paste it down in the chat section. You can have a look down here. Okay. And now you have Discord, and this is the GitHub link. Do whatever you want to. You can start if you want to start it. If you want to do whatever you want to, you can start it. You can clone it. You can do whatever you want to with the repository. Okay. So few people have started though. Cool. So you can go ahead and have a look on the code down here. Yeah, of course. It will be done like in the second half. After 2, it will be uploaded. You can go and have a look on it. Rajendra, how to use specific like for, comma ID? मुझे अभी भी तुम्हारा क्वेश्चन समझ नहीं आ रहा है. तुम पता नहीं क्या पूछ रहे हो. For कहाँ से आया यहाँ पे? How to use specific like for? I don't know. I think you're not able to frame your question properly. I'll explain it to you tomorrow when I'll give you a recap. Then you'll understand the whole thing. I'll explain it to you once more. Don't worry about that. HTML. Oh, achha, HTML में the thing that you saw in forms. You're asking. You're asking about the form for. Form wala for. You're asking. You're asking the Rajendra. Are you asking? Oh, for. It's only for JavaScript. Even if you don't see, I'm not writing it, but still it's working fine. Okay. For is only for JavaScript to know this is the variable that you want to assign it to. Okay. I'll do that. I will put it in your Discord itself. Okay. My Discord mein hi dal dunga. Your HTML and CSS both MD links. I'll share it on your Discord itself. That is Sriram. That is way beyond out of the scope of the course. Sometimes if we'll be having any other workshops, then I'll explain it to you. Okay? Okay? Okay, yeah, I'll do that. क्या चन्नम क्या नहीं मिल रहा है तुम्हें क्या सेंड करूं what should I send second HTML code भेज तो दिया सारा यहाँ तो है everything is here in the GitHub guys if you have any personal questions like please DM me that's fine you can DM me everything. Okay, the invite is invalid. Guys, ये तो रहा CSS में if you're creating a different style sheet, this is an example of external CSS. This is external CSS. I just showed you. This is your external CSS. Okay. For the people who is still getting issues with Discord, what you can simply do is just not GitHub. You can ping me up on LinkedIn. We don't have any WhatsApp group, guys. I am pretty secure on my WhatsApp. I keep my personal and professional life very, very separate. So no WhatsApp group, sorry. Okay, so if you have issues with Discord, maybe you're not a part of Discord, not able to access Discord or anything, you can give me your request down here. This is my LinkedIn. So you can write your queries down here. You can DM me out here. Will that work? Sure, Puneet, sure. VS Code is completely free. No, Vivek, we don't have WhatsApp groups. Sorry. No WhatsApp groups. It's called as FSD Full Stack Dev. The name of the channel is Full Stack Dev. That is where everybody will be there, even including me. I'll be there. Harsh, DM me. I'll give you all the extensions. Okay. How can you join the Full Stack course? Again, DM me. I'll explain. Gurnan, DM me. I'll explain you how to join the Full Stack course. Okay. Chalo guys, with that said and done, if you'll be having any personal questions, put that in your Discord DMs, or you can put that in your LinkedIn DMs. That's fine. Okay. No WhatsApp groups. I'm sorry. I have a lot of personal things to be covered out in, WhatsApp. So I don't prefer WhatsApp. Okay. Chalo. If you'd be having any queries from here, please feel free to push your doubts in the Discord community. I'll make sure that they get answered. All right. Thank you so much for joining the session, guys. I hope you enjoyed the session, and I hope you're making something out of these sessions. And I hope you really enjoyed the session. All right. Thank you so much, guys. And we'll be meeting tomorrow at the same time, 11 a.m. Okay. Bye-bye, guys. Yeah, I'll give you the assignment doc in the Discord channel itself. Okay. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.